I just turned on the recording.
Oh, okay, good. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, and to Narayan Rishis, supermost human being, and to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So we are going to continue to read from the second canto, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation. And we are on chapter 8, entitled Question by Maharaj Parikshit. And we are going to read from text 15. Bhupatala. Kakup. Yoma. Graha. Nakshatra. Bhubritam. Sarit. Samudra. Vipanam. Sambhava. Cha. Etat. Okasham. Bhupatala kakupyoma. Grahanakshatra bhubritam. Sarit samudra dvipanam. Sambhavash chaitad okasham. Bhupatala kakupyoma. Grahanakshatra bhubritam. Sarit samudra dvipanam. Sambhavash chaitad okasham. Bhupatala kakupyoma. Grahanakshatra bhubritam. Sarit samudra dvipanam. Sambhavash chaitad okasham.
Upatala kakubhyoma. Graha nakshatra bhubritam. Sarit samudra dvipanam. Sambhavas chaitadokasam. Bhupatala kakubhyoma. Graha Nakshatra Bhubritam Sarit Samudra Dvipanam Sambhavas Chaitad Okasam.
Someone else would like to chant online?
Bhupatala kahu vyoma
Upatala Kakuvyoma
Graha nakshatra bhugritam
Nakshatra Bhubritam
Harit samudra dvipanam
Sarit Samudra Dvipanam
Sambhavas chaitadokasham.
Sambhavas Chaitad Okasam. Anybody else? Bhupatala. Someone want to repeat after me?
Upatala,
Underneath the land.
underneath the land.
Kakup,
Kakub,
the four sides of the heavens.
the four sides of the heavens.
Vyoma,
Vyoma,
the sky.
the sky.
Graha,
Graha,
the planets.
the planets.
Nakshatra,
Nakshatra,
the stars.
the stars.
Bhubritam,
Ubritam,
of the hills.
of the hills.
Sarit,
Sarit,
the river.
the river.
Samudra,
Samudra,
the sea.
the sea.
Dvipanam,
Dvipanam,
of the islands.
of the islands.
Sambhava,
Sambhava,
appearance.
appearance.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Etat,
Etat,
there.
there.
Okasam,
Okasam,
of the inhabitants.
of the inhabitants.
Translation. O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the sky, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the seas, and the islands, as well as their different kinds of inhabitants, takes place. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The inhabitants of different varieties of land, etc., are differently situated, and not all of them are equal in all respects. The inhabitants of the land are different from the inhabitants of the water or the sky. And similarly, the inhabitants of the different planets and stars in the sky are also different from one another. By the laws of the Lord, no place is vacant, but the creatures of one particular place are different from those of other places. Even in human society, the inhabitants of the jungles or deserts are different from those of the cities and villages. They are so made according to different qualities of the modes of nature. Such adjustment by the laws of nature is not blind. There is a great plan behind the arrangement. Maharaj Parikshit requests the great sage Sukadev Goswami to explain all this authoritatively in accordance with proper understanding. Om Ajnanatimirandhyasya Jnanajnana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Kadamayan Dadati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saita Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvasesha Shunyavadi Paskachari Jatarini. Then, no. O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the skies, the planets, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the seas, and the islands, as well as the different kinds of inhabitants takes place. Hare Krishna. So, good morning, everyone. I'm appreciating Maharaj Parikshit's question. Is fasting, is not sleeping, is not eating, is just eager to hear about transcendental matter because he wants to really be ready for the time of his death. And what does he ask about? Is about what's happening here. Is not asking about esoteric subject matter of pastime of Radha Krishna in the spiritual sky. That's not what he's asking about. He's asking about this universe, about the stars, the globes. He's asking about the mountains, the river, the islands, the sea. He's asking about all the type of living entities within this universe. So I feel like so much relevance with Maharaj Parikshit's question. I have some notes, so I'm going to go. Those notes are just took them from reading what came up for me when I read this purport. And I know for many years, I had questions of this sort, but my questions were not as submissive as the question of Maharaj Parikshit, because often it was happening when I was driving. I will be driving, and then I will see the car going this way and the car going this way and zooming this way. And then all of a sudden, I will have a moment like that where I felt like there is no order. There is absolutely no order. This is all random. And that's something that I've been very recurrent until I allow myself to really go deeply, more deeply, because I couldn't believe that if there was an order, that if there was God really, and it was an order in the universe, that it will look the way it looks. Obviously, it will look very different if there was an order. Obviously, it will look very different if God was behind the creation. It will not look that crazy. It will not look like the house looks the way it looks, like the way to Gainesville looks the way it looks. It will look something different. But that's what I was witnessing around me could only be random chance, just happening. And, in fact, my mind could have gone to like, it's just happening from an explosion. There was a big explosion, and here we are in Gainesville, me being Mary Glashin, Malini, Devi, Dasi, driving to Gainesville, and that's it. And that wasn't satisfying either. So my mind wasn't satisfied with that, because if it's random and if there is an explosion, it doesn't solve the problem of why is it this way? Why is it that the car going this way and the sky look blue, the tree look green, and there is people walking like that? So even with my doubts and even with my non-acceptance of order and wanted to really believe in randomness, even then randomness wasn't satisfying somehow, because even randomness will not create that. So naturally, I needed to allow myself to just be in a question. I will not go further than being in a question. In the same way as Maharaj Parikshit is in question and asking, okay, so if it's not random and there must be some organization, but why the organization will lead us to the realities that we have? And that's so nicely responded in this verse and purport. And I feel a lot of joy to get to share my process around creation, around understanding, the globes, and everything around us. And in order to understand every part of the creation, we need to understand the purpose of creation. Because if there is no purpose, there is no organization. An organization can only come from a clear intention. A planning, isn't it? It's hard to make plan if we don't have a goal, or if we don't have a purpose, or if we don't have an intention. So the planning or the organization of the universe must be connected with a purpose for the universe. And so according to the Veda, according to the teaching of Srila Prabhupada, the purpose of all creation, of the creation, is to reform those spirit souls who have decided to enjoy separated from the Lord, to reform and give them also to fulfill their desire to enjoy separated from the Lord. So as we can look at the cosmic manifestation and this universe as a combination, a co-creation between the Lord and the desire of the living entities, for the purpose of transforming that desire of the living entity to reconnect with their constitutional position of desiring to serve the Lord, of desiring to be with the Lord. So we can look at the cosmic manifestation as Durga. Durga means it's a fortress. It's a prison house. A nice prison house, like described here is mountains and hills and rivers and nature. It sounds very nice. And still it is a prison house. And in that prison house, everything is made to reform the prisoner according to their activities and according to their desires. And also, an analogy that's helpful for me, and I didn't take it from Srila Prabhupada, and you will soon understand how come. An analogy that comes to me that really helped me understand is an analogy of a computer. I like the analogy of the computer. And in my analogy, I see like material nature, the gross material nature, as being the hardware of the computer. And then the software of the computer, all the different calculation and organization, really software are very, very, very well organized. And that's Krishna, Krishna through his different expansion as Vishnu, that give an order, the law of nature. And everything is so well thought about. And in fact, in thinking of how well everything is thought about, where I go is really appreciating the intelligence, how much intelligence is there. Like as parents, sometimes we use our intelligence to reform a child for some reason. Reforming doesn't mean punishment or in a heavy way. It means helping a child becoming happier, becoming more connected with themselves, becoming satisfied, becoming aligned with their purpose, whatever. And an intelligent parents will understand, okay, what my child needs and give it to my child without my child even knowing. So much intelligence behind the creation, so much intelligence that we can be in awe of how intricate all the creation is and how perfect it is to reform unlimited amount of living entities according to their specific, unique desire and activities. So the software is intelligence, the planning, the organization, the laws, everything is in the software. And then we, living entities, then becomes the data. Yeah, we have a hardware, we have the software, and then we put the data. We put data in a software, and what come out is usually it's a product or something like outside of when we put data and something come out of that. So it's a big computer. It's a 3D computer, maybe 5D's computer, and then within that computer, all the data. And those data, what are they? All the desire of the living entities, that the desire of the living entity who desire to enjoy separated from Krishna and their activities, all their subtle bodies is put into data and put in that computer. And pop, here is a material creation. Here is a material creation. Here is different place of living. Here are the islands and the seas. Here are the rivers and the mountains. Here are different types of living entities, bodies for 8,400,000 species, different dwellings place. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada say apartments. So all that, not simply the dwellings and the apartment, but everything around is according to the desire of the living entities. So from that perspective, okay, then it's easier to understand the organization and the fact that it can be very, very crazy because the living entities, as they associate with the mode of material nature, and many associate with the mode of passion and ignorance, they are in association with the mode of material nature, their desire become more and more degraded, more and more disconnected, more and more in a mode of ignorance. So based on that and based on the fact that everything around us is a collective of our responsibility. Krishna consciousness is radical responsibility. Sometime in our seminar, we said being willing to be responsible for everything. And it's nice. It's nice. It's an attitude of life that can serve us to live in conscious living. And also, we are responsible for everything. Everything around us is a result of our desire, individually and collectively. The aggregate of all the desire create the realities, create that, yes, there is some human being who live in the jungle. There is some living being who live in the desert. There is some living being who are born and in opulence and gold all over them, and education and everything they need. There is some living human being that are born in places where there is no food even to feed them from the time they are babies, or even not even the basic need for the survival of their body. So there is inequality. Srila Prabhupada said in his purport, there's not such a thing as equality, and that inequality is born of the desire of the living entities. And Srila Prabhupada in a purport, he said, and the laws of nature is not blind. The law of nature is not blind. That it's not random. It's really coming from love. There is only love in the universe and nothing else. And I know it's difficult to accept that there is love when we see people killing each other, when we see so much suffering, so much abuse, so much oppression, so much like random violence towards animals, random violence towards children, women, towards helpless living entities. It's so hard to accept that the law of nature is not blind. And it's like sometimes I like, dear Govinda, I don't know where you took that analogy, but I really like it. Sometimes we can look at a court. Let's say there is a court case. And for days and days, maybe a full week, there was a discussion about all the crime of a person. That person killed, raped, abused, and did all kind of atrocity. And for 1 week, the juries, the judge, and the people present in the court, they hear that. They hear that for 7 days, they hear all the atrocity of that person. And then at the very end of the judgment, I come in and I see that person, and he's very angelic looking. Let's say it's like really nice, young person, very angelic looking. And as soon as I enter the court case, the judge declared, you're condemned to death. And I'm like just entering and seeing that. I say, no, there must be a mistake. Look, he's so nice, such a nice personality. He looks so angelic. There must be a mistake. And everybody else is turning at me and looking at me and saying, where have you been for the last 7 days? This is the most awful person you will ever meet in your entire life. So that's what's happened. We don't know. We don't know what we have done in our previous life. We don't know all the atrocity we have committed. We don't know what led to this miserable situation in life. And we don't know what led to those abundance also situation in life. In the last verse, it says that it's proportionate to what we do. So if we do a little bit of good and a lot of bad, then we will probably incur some reaction, and then maybe some of the reaction are going to be finding ourselves in a painful situation, maybe a body that's not healthy, maybe in a place where we feel abused, or a place that is so difficult to have relationship with others, or a place where there is no food, or a place that's hellish, like New York City, or New Delhi, where even the air is not breathable. Now there is many places on the planet where through the desire of the living entity, remember that it's all through the desire of the living entities. There is place on the planet where not only there is no water on many places on the planet, that's started already a long time ago, that water became scarce. It didn't used to be scarce, but that's one natural element that becomes scarce. Now what's becoming scarce in many places on earth is air. The very air that we breathe is becoming scarce because the desire of the living entity. So Krishna consciousness is a lot about supporting ourselves and others to transform our desire. We can look at our desire, where our desire leading us in this body, in this life. You know, like we have desire, and our desire are manifesting also now. And through those desire, we may create auspicious situation or pleasurable situation, or through our desire, if we look at our desire for the last 20 years, maybe all we are creating is more miseries. And then from that we understand, okay, what's my desire, and where will those desires lead me in my next life? Will I have the situation I have now? Will I have a good health? Will I really, because of my desire, will I land in a place where there is abundance or not? So we can just look at, we can look at our desire, our activity in this lifetime, and see what are we creating, not simply for this life, but the next life. Are we creating to be alone because we don't know? We always fight with people, always criticize, always judge. And so maybe right now we have people around, but then maybe that won't last. Are we abusing our health and not taking care of our health? And in this life, maybe exhausting all our pious credit for good health or money or whatever in our lives. And then ultimately, what we want to look at is transforming our desire, that we don't even have any material desire anymore. That we come to a place of giving ourselves to the spiritual master, trusting that the spiritual master is like a father or a mother who also understand the intelligence of the Lord, who also have the intelligence of the Lord. Have the intelligence and know how to create a teaching, to create knowledge, to create activities that are going to change our desire, to create spiritual desire, for us to develop spiritual desire. Spiritual desire maybe starting with understanding, like, so that's what we have been creating: birth, death, old age, disease. We have been creating that. We have been creating misery from other living entities, miseries from our own mind, our own body and minds, misery from the elements. Like we have seen that the last year have been so full of miseries, the virus, and then on top of that, so many floods and earthquakes and really scary fire killing people. Now in many places, even there is the earth opening itself and swallowing people into it, swallowing houses. And it's not very difficult to understand. This is not a place for gentlemen. It's not a place where we belong. And so where do we belong is what we want to understand. And not only where we belong, but how to go there. And the first step to know to go there is to understand where we are at. Like if we are a prisoner, we will want to understand, how does that prison work? What are the rules? I want to follow the rule because I want to be a good citizen of the prison, because maybe I will get out of the prison earlier. What are the rules? How does it function? Where do I do what I need to do? What are those rooms about? What are those places about? How can I use all aspects of the prison to get me out of the prison? But I need to know the prison in order to do that. And I need to understand how the prison works. Because without knowing how the prison works, it's going to be very difficult to step out of that prison. So there is a great plan, Prabhupada. There is two sentences that I really love in the purport, and I will read them again because I really love them. There is two sentences that he said, such adjustments by the laws of nature is not blind. And after he says, there is a great plan beyond the arrangement. So there is a great plan beyond the arrangement. And samsara nalalila loka tranaya kauna gana gana advam aptasya karyana guna nirvasya bandegu shri charana vindam. So this verse says that, yeah, this is samsara, the wheel of birth and death that create that, yeah, maybe in this lifetime I live in Alachua, Florida, and next life in a woman, human body, and next lifetime I may be living in Africa in a roach's body. Oh, like the samsara, the cycle of birth and death that doesn't stop. It's like a burning fire. It just burns like fire. And as long as we have material desire, any type of material desire, maybe gross or subtle, and sometimes we are not aware that we have material desire. Our desires sometimes are not manifested in a form of desire. We may not think cognitively, oh, I have desire. However, our action, our response to the world is going to help us manifest our desire or understand our desire. Because it's not simply a cognitive process like, yes, I have material desire. That's there to become aware of material desires. That's there. And when we are not aware of our material desire, it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have material desire. It means that we are not aware of them. Because as long as we have a material body, as long as we have any sense of false identification, as long as we have an urge to defend, as long as we have anything inside of us that have some anxieties or worries, then we know we have material desires. That they are there. So the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master, he is here, and that fire that burns of material desires, that burns us to death, that creates more and more complexity in the material. We are more and more entangled in the complexity of material nature, Srila Prabhupada said. We get more, the more we want to control nature, the more we want to control our life, the more we want to lord over, the more we get entangled. What we are trying to control is controlling us. So that burning fire that's constantly there on us, burning fire, is very easily extinguished by the spiritual master who is like a cloud full of water, and he can pour water on that forest fire, and he extinguishes all the burning forest fire. So we want to offer obeisances to our spiritual master. We want to learn to really, the via media to the spiritual sky is to get in contact with the pure devotee. The pure devotee has the power to help us out because he's not in. Only someone like, I'm not going to get so much help from a prisoner in a prison. Even if the prisoner have good philosophy, even if the prisoner is like writing books, even if the prisoner he has made a plan, like we feel better within the prison, and he's very good at making us feel good in a prison, is not going to help me coming out. Only the President of the United States can decide, you're out, isn't it? Like there is something like that, at least in America. So he's the only one who can do that. So similarly, the spiritual master, he has the power. He has the power, and by us serving the spiritual master, giving our life to the spiritual master, to the mission of the spiritual master, can we start to please the spiritual master? And to pleasing the spiritual master, we attract his attention, and he's going to petition to Krishna. You know, this person is really devoted to me, is really serving me. Srimati Radharani, she's well known to petition to Krishna like that. Say like, please help that person, get him out. Because it's our responsibility to transform our desire. It's our responsibility to push the will in our heart, the will of material desire. It's our responsibility to accept responsibility for everything in the world, every single thing. No mistake in the universe, no mistake. There is not even one blade of grass who move without the sanction of the Lord. There is no mistake in the universe. And the spiritual master, Srimati Radharani, they see that we are sincere to not want to continue to lord over the material nature. We are sincere that we are not even trying to get out because it feels good to be out. And really see like, yes, I want to be out of that prison because I want to be a citizen, a good citizen, and serve people, be with people, serve, and ultimately serve Radha Krishna, the relationship between Radha and Krishna. So yes, so we are creating a varieties of field of activities, and the field of activities include the body and the surrounding of the body. He include where I live, what kind of climate, what kind of nature, what kind of people are around me, all that. And then can you imagine how to calculate all that for each living entity, finding matches like, is they living with me? It's a perfect arrangement for me. It's a perfect arrangement for Eze and everybody else in Alachua, the postman, everyone here is perfectly are orchestrated for everyone's benefit. What a brain! It's kind of, if I was trying to solve that equation, there's no way I can even touch it. But Krishna has such an intelligence. He's the most intelligent. He's one of his abundance, opulence, intelligence, that he can even solve such a complicated puzzle. And by hand, it is solved to what we see around us. What we see around us is perfectly aligned with everyone's desire and activities. And I'm going to stop here. I feel complete. So I'm going to read again the verse and we can have a discussion. Bhupatala kakubhyoma ka anakshatra bhubritam sarit samudra dvipanam sambhasas chaitad okasam. O best of the Brahmanas, please also describe how the creation of the globes throughout the universe, the four directions of the heavens, the sky, the planet, the stars, the mountains, the rivers, the sea, and the islands, as well as their different kinds of inhabitants, takes place. Hare Krishna. Any
Hare Krishna.
common question?
Yes.
Yes, easy. I'm so glad you're here.
So a little bit ago you were talking about, okay, so I'm in the prison, let me learn the rules so that I can get out. How I interpreted this is, okay, let me follow the rules, let me do the things because it will serve me in some way. And then at the end you said, oh, well, let me get out, not because it'll be good for me, but because I want to serve others. And then the first step would be, I'm not even trying to get out, right? So there's like a progression. So then would you say in that case, following the rules for my benefit is not as good as following the rules because I love Krishna spontaneously, but it's like, it's better than not following the rules at all. Like if it's like mechanical, if it's forced, if it's like contrived, what have you, it's like a step in that direction.
Thank you. Amazing.
Yes.
We say Krishna is fully, one of his opulence of Krishna is intelligence, and Eze is manifesting a lot of intelligence. Krishna's part and parcel, Eze. Thank you for your question. So, yes, so I appreciate your question, and yes, that's exactly, it's a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone. Prabhupada said, yeah, it's like, we want to go back to Godhead, for example. I want to desire to go back to Godhead. And at the same time, if we really look, like often I hear like, I so much want to go back to Godhead. Well, behind that sentence, there is like, I'm so tired of suffering here, I don't want to suffer. So it's kind of a desire for liberation. It's not truly a desire for Krishna or serving Krishna. And at the same time, liberation is the first step to its, in the development, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. It's like a first step in self-realization, coming to that place. So yes, it's a stepping stone to realize this is a place of misery. That's the first step, in fact. The first step in spiritual life is to accept that I'm miserable. It's not even like to want to get out. It's like being in a prison house, say, I don't belong here. I don't belong. I don't want to be here. I'm suffering here. Everybody else is suffering here. I did a course in a prison. It was a juvenile detention center. So it was teenager, from 13 to 17-year-old. And they were in prison. They were in jumpsuits, orange jumpsuits. They were eating slaps. There was like so many doors banging all day, and they had cells. So they were in a prison, and they were enjoying. They were finding a way to enjoy, to make games, to make rules, to have one that's dominate the other one, to have, I saw that they were really, some of them were enjoying more than others, but they were in illusion. They were not realizing that I'm miserable here. Let me see that everybody else is miserable. No, the wanting to show off and the wanting to show that I'm so happy, look at me. I'm so happy, we're so strong in that situation. So the first step towards the spiritual development is to see like, yeah, I am in prison and there is nothing fun here. There is nothing fun, nothing, understand nothing. Because the prisoner, they were thinking, yes, fun. We go out once a day and we can play basketball and we have friendship. They were not thinking there is nothing fun here. They were still thinking there is thing fun. But for someone who is not in prison, they don't think like, oh, there is something fun about being in prison, isn't it? You will not think like that, isn't it? But the people in prison, they think, they have thought like that there is something fun about being in prison. There is enjoyment there, and I can try to find more enjoyment and more enjoyment, not realizing that, no, I'm in a very miserable place with guards that are constantly picking at me, poking me, and other prisoners that are fighting with me. This is really not a nice place to be. So that's the first step, to understand, like, I'm miserable. I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know anything, and everybody else is in illusion and miserable. That's the first step. And then from that place, naturally, wow, I'm miserable here. Let me try to find something else. And when I found that something else, all I want is that something else. But that's, that's different step. And then at one point, as this devotee advanced further, he get in contact with the super soul inside the heart and realize, wow, there is a friend here, a real friend. Someone who is really like guiding the wandering of all living entity, and with me, guiding me. And then through that, there is a development of like something more personal. And then as the guidance comes, then the detachment from the material misery happened. So it's not even miserable anymore here. It's like if you have, you have a prison and someone is transcending the prison house, then it's not like he's trying to be happy in a prison, but it's not that he's very affected by unhappiness either. So in that place, then there is an opening like, okay, so life, it's okay. I'm transcendental to it. I'm with my friend. I'm guided. Everything is on purpose, and I'm following the guidance from my friend, and I trust my friend. Then you know I go further, and then maybe I can really give myself to serving my friend. I can really get to know what he likes, what he dislikes, what's the relationship that he likes to have, and how he can enjoy me. And then it doesn't matter where I am, then it doesn't matter what I do, because all that matters is to serve and please Guru and Krishna. So there is gradation in spiritual life. And to really know where we are, it's helpful in spiritual life.
Okay, so then I have my corollary question.
Okay.
So you were speaking about how it's our responsibility to become aware of our desires so that we can eventually transform away from material desires. So would you say it's the same, like first step would be, I'm not even aware of my desires and I'm unconsciously going about meeting them. And then in the middle is something like, I'm aware of what I want and I can choose more direct strategies for meeting my desires, even if they're material. And then on the other end, there would be transcending material desires altogether.
I relate to what you're saying. Yeah, like from completely unconsciously being run by my material desire and be like a robot and a slave to my material desire, to like becoming aware of my material desire, and then instead of being a slave to it, I can still choose, okay, that's my material desire. And there is more consciousness, that's conscious choice. And in that conscious choice also, there is acceptance that, you know, maybe there will be consequences to fulfilling my desire, you know, at the same time. And also no guarantee that my desires are going to be fulfilled. And it's more conscious than being simply a slave and automatically acting my material desire. And then, often being aware of our material desire from that place of choice. And at one point or another, from that place of being conscious and choice. So you may choose like, well, in fact, what I want is to devote that material desire into Krishna. And then after like more and more developing spiritual desire to please Krishna, desire to please the spiritual master. Yeah, I very much resonate with everything you share. Yeah. Part and parcel of Krishna, manifesting Krishna's intelligence. Parts, like a drop. But you know, Krishna is really, 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 really smart. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Izzy. Thank you, Bhakta Izzy.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Ladini.
I have a doubt. So you shared that like it's like, okay, like the rewards and punishment to rectify us. And then it comes for we don't know what. So, I mean, how that helps. Like in animal training, if the punishment or a reward doesn't come immediately after the behavior, or maybe like 8 seconds later, there is no chance that there will like ever be connection in the brain of the cause and effect. And so like how we are supposed to like get this, like, and like, for example, I was born, I am for sure responsible for it, but I was born in a situation where I didn't have like any ideas about like any rules, but to even speak of like having any chance to understand like cause and effect. So how can I learn in such situation?
How can you learn in such situation? It sounds like unfair, because what's the opportunity to learn when what you call punishment come and you don't even know what action you perform? Like if you punish a horse because they did something 3 months ago, the horse is not going to understand and just be rebelling and feel abuse. So like you're looking at, okay, well, then what kind of reformation is that? What kind of teaching is that? Yeah, that's what you're saying. So I didn't use those words, reward and punishment. That's your words, but I didn't use those words because that's not how I see it. And the way I see it is that we constantly have desires that lead us to activities. And those activities lead us to, again, develop desire and more desire. So everything is based on desire. And of course, our activities, like maybe I don't have desire for sugar, for example. Often I don't desire sugar. But let's say I go to a feast, I go to Dear Govinda Prabhu's house, I get a laddu. Then from that experience with the laddu, I will develop desire to have more laddus or to have sugar. And before that, I didn't have the desire whatsoever. So we have desire to enjoy away from Krishna, and we have activities that we perform because of those desires. And those activities lead us to more desire. And so when we take birth, for example, you take that example of birth, then we have a certain set of desires that are going to be fulfilled through the life that we have. And also whatever spiritual desires that may be there is also fulfilled. So I don't relate so much with punishment, even so there is, like definitely in the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is that sense also of punishment. But the way I like to see it in terms of the all cosmic manifestation and taking birth and the different situation is really how aligned with our desire it is. Like nobody, for example, desire to be a pig in their next life. Nobody desire to be a pig in their next life. And so you can say, well, if someone is eating like slop, eating, becoming fat, and eating in this lifetime as a human being, they don't have the desire to be a pig. And you can say, well, it's unfair because when they take birth as a pig, they don't know that that's connected with the way they were eating way too much and really sabotaging their being by doing that. Yeah, sabotaging, like really eating more than a human being needs, and then sabotaging their being by doing that. And at the same time, the peak situation for that living entity desiring what the living entity desire is the best situation to clear up the desire for that kind of eating, for example. So it's always out of love. Everything that's happened is out of love, because that situation is going to completely clear the desire for eating slop, because it will be completely fulfilled in a pig position. And then the pig has an opportunity to evolve. So similarly with human being, it feels unfair, like I'm born with a family that doesn't have money or food. And at the same time, that birth is according, not simply to my activity, but like to my desire. They align with desires that I have developed. And through those desires, I have a perfect situation to clear up the accumulated karma that's getting in the way of spiritual realization. And I have a possibility to use my human life, regardless where we come from. We said Sunday with Parampara, to use this human life for self-realization. So that's how I see it.
Well, I like your big example that highlights it, but like, okay, so what desire would it be for someone to be born starving to death?
What will be desire to be born? Well, like desire and activity reaction, like maybe that person was extremely greedy in their past lives. They may have been very, very greedy.
He was greedy, then he should have more now. That was his desire.
Well, I said desire are not simply fulfilled. You develop a certain kind of, like, for example, greediness is coming from I don't have enough, or there is not enough. So desire is not like, we don't want to take desire on surface level, because that's not how it works. Behind the desire, behind the greed, there is something else happening. And that something else will create a situation.
Thank you.
It's
That really helps.
it's desire and deserve. It's desire and deserve. And like you gave the courtroom analogy. So okay, someone's starving, and yeah, okay. So maybe we're just coming in the middle of the movie, and maybe the first hour of the movie is how this person was the cause for hundreds of children to starve, and he was a very sadistic person. But no, this is just a poor innocent child starving. We're just coming in the middle of the movie. Maybe this person was the cause of children starving in the first hour of the movie.
Yeah.
Yes, but then, like, I think, like, the idea that like the greediness is coming from not enough. Like, I have to like collect more than I need so that I don't starve and I don't care if others starve. It like helps me more to like understand, because what you are saying, Diragovinda Prabhu, doesn't like really respond to like, okay, so I was greedy, I caused others starving, now I am starving, but I don't know that I did it. So then it doesn't, like, I understand it was also probably the case, but it doesn't help so well to learn.
You connect that with your example of the horse. Like, if it's just punishment for my last life, then how does that teach me anything? Yeah, and that, like, it's also understanding that it's perfect. There is no mistake in the universe. So there is perfection, and the perfection may be fair or unfair from our material point of view. However, it's always fair. It's always for the benefit of the living entities, always for the benefit of the spirit soul inhabiting that situation. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Len, I saw that you have your hand up and now you put it down, so I'm not sure where you're at.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah, I just was curious about something for the living entities that were unfortunate enough to take an animal body or be a dog or be a cat. They don't have the opportunity. I mean, how can they advance out of that body? How can they don't have the consciousness to transform their desires, So for all the billions and billions of jivas that are not in human bodies, I feel a little bad for them. So how do they advance? How do they ever get out of their horrible material situation? Because I guess, is it that, okay, the body they have, the karma they have, yeah, how do they advance to get into a human body so that they can progress more, so that they can become aware even of spiritual life, right? Because animals are just based, they took a certain body because of what happened in their previous lives, okay, but now they have no choice, right? They're stuck. How do they ever get out of that? I mean, maybe if my cat is lucky because he's living in a house of devotees, and he gets our devotee association, so my cat can advance. But so many animals are not so fortunate, right? So, is there anything else you could shed more light on that as to how all these other entities can advance? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for your question, Len. Like, you want to know, like, okay, so in the human form of life, like, so much of the teaching is to understand how the human form of life is rare and is an opportunity. And it's so important. It's so much part of Srila Prabhupada's teaching to understand the boon of human life. there is 8,400,000 species of life, 400,000 species of human being, and how the human birth is a boon. And so what you're saying, okay, you understand in the human birth, one can choose Krishna or Maya, but then the animal, how can they make advancement? And that's very connected with the law. There is a law and order in these purports. There is nothing is random. Everything is very well organized. And part of that is those different dwellings. And to respond to your question, I'm going to go to Darwin, because Darwin got it right. He got it right in the sense that there is evolution. But Darwin, where he got it really wrong, is that he thought that the evolution was the evolution of the body. That doesn't make any sense. We've never seen a body evolving into another body. But the evolution, you know that drawing from Jadurani, where you see the 8, like the wheel of samsara, and then you see the animals coming in and out. You remember that drawing? Maybe it's here. Can you look if it's here? Yeah. So there is 8,400,000 species of life. 400,000 only are human being, and the rest is animals. Great. Do you see that? You see that, Len? Do you know that? That drawing? So here we see the evolution, and there is such a thing as evolution, and Darwin got it right, you know, very, very close to right, like from amphibian to, you know, people on animals and crawling insect to crawling to the birds and all that. So there is evolution, but evolution is of the soul. So in a sense, only in the human form can we accumulate karma and accumulate karma, or like, accumulate karma only in a human form. And also in the human form, it's easiest form to choose Krishna. But in other form, like for example, in animal life, it's like purgatory. We are purging our karma. So in those forms, there is a natural evolution. Like let's say some desire of the living entity is going to be purged by having a life as an ant, you know, learning collective living. Anyway, having a life as an ant. And then other desire of the living entity is going to be purged by having a lifetime or many lifetimes as a rabbit. And then maybe as a horse or a cow or a monkey or a tiger, like that. And so each of those forms, they are perfect. That's why the intelligence is so amazing and conceivable behind the creation, because each of those forms, and not only the form, like you can take a tiger, or you have tigers that are starving, you have tigers in the zoo, you have tigers in so many situations, and all those situations, not simply in a tiger body, but in all those situations, they correspond to exactly what that living entity needs to purge in order to evolve to little by little arriving at the human. And the human, you arrive to the human to 3 gates. I think one gate is cow, the other one is the lion, I think, and the other one the monkey. But I'm sure about the cow and like that. So there is gates that where when you come to that dwelling, like that body that corresponds maybe what's left of curing or redemption of what was accumulated in the soul, as you know, on the subtle body, in the subtle body. When that's finished, then one gets to get the human birth. And according to what the human birth is going to be, one will elevate themselves closer and closer to the mode of goodness in the human body, or degrade himself closer to animal life and go back to animal life. So the evolution that's happened is an evolution of consciousness, of the consciousness of the living entity being purged with each life in each species of life. That's a simplistic way of explaining, and that's what I understand.
And it might take you 8 million lifetimes to progress in that consciousness evolution. If you're starting out as an ant to get up to the cow, it might
Or an
take.
amoeba, yeah, or an amoeba, or, you know, like part of the purport here is that there is life everywhere. And there is life in fire. The science discovers there is also living entities in fire. There is living entities in our Bhagavad Gita course. Dear Govinda gave an article about the discoveries that there is life under glacier. So life forms, there is so many life forms, and there is spirit soul in so many forms. So yes, there is possible that millions and millions of lifetime, millions of lifetime in different kalpas. We often, Prabhupada say, nitya bada, that we are eternally conditioned. And what he means is that we have been cycling in the different universes, in the different species of life for time immemorial. And it's almost like we are eternally conditioned. So like you said, it takes innumerable number of lifetime to come to human birth. And this is why it's so, so precious. You know, if I look at the room here, there is 2 humans, but just looking at around me, there is a few ants, and then all the bacteria in my body, all the cells. It's like human birth is so rare. Even in this room, it's like we are a minority, a big minority. So to understand that the evolution happened, and there is such a thing, evolution. And when the evolution end up at the human birth, the three mode of nature have uncovered the free will of the living entities enough that the living entity in a human form of life have more ability to manifest his free will. Before that, in animal species, the free will is so covered by the mode of material nature that there is no chance of free will. And the free will is to choose Maya or Krishna. Though in a human form, there is no free will. It's just almost all instinct, all going like, where is food? Where is water? Where is a mat? Where can I sleep? That's all there is going on. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Bhaktanen. Thank you all. It was a pleasure being with you. Oh, but Ramachandra Prabhu.
Kim had her hand also raised. I wonder if she wanted to.
Oh, yes, Kim.
Hi. I have one question. Well, a big question. But the one thing that always throws me, like I know that for me, nothing's ever explained any of this as much as Vedic philosophy. But the one thing that always throws me, always nags at me, is it's so hard for me to believe that if we were all in the spiritual world, the way it's described, that we would want to leave for any reason. And, you know, they say, okay, well, we wanted to be, you know, the master, we wanted to be God. But then I go back to, it's very hard for me to believe that, let's say we had that kind of desire. I just have a hard time believing that God wouldn't have some other way. Like, you know, like if I have somebody in my life and they want to do something I don't want to do, I love them and I think, okay, go do that. And, you know, come back. I don't know. I wouldn't think, don't do that. I would just think, go do that and then come back, whatever. So, and God has to be so much more magnanimous than I am. So I think he would have some way of set up, okay, yeah, go do that. Not necessarily some, you know, awful lesson. And and I don't want to go on to like whether it's awful or not, okay, but just some nice way to do that
Some nice way.
separation without this, you know.
Mhm.
So I just, those are my two things that always come back to me. It's very hard for me to believe that we'd want to leave in any
Yeah.
way or separate ourselves in any way. But if we did, it's hard for me to believe that Krishna wouldn't have some more pleasant way for us to do that and come back. And that always keeps nagging at me.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. And I'm going to share what I understand from my reading and practicing Krishna consciousness for a few years. So for your first question, difficult to understand why any of the part and parcel of Krishna, why any of the spirit, soul, living entities who are really enjoying with Krishna, being enjoyed by Krishna, being in the spiritual world, why any of them will want to leave that association. And my understanding is not like they want to leave the association and come to Mary Glashin or Dear Govinda or Anand. It's like it's just a seed. Like there is a seed, there is a grain of, it's like maybe a grain of sand in the consciousness that's not very big. However, that's somehow becoming like for my enjoyment, very small. And I like your example, like if you have a friend and your friend wants to do something else, you say, well, go do what you want to do and come back. And that's really how Krishna is, because it's not that we have that grain of sand and then, oh, we are born in Africa without food and without anything. Now, my understanding is that the first stages of falling is not that heavy. It's kind of like Heavenly Planet or Satya Yoga, where everything is very, very beautiful and people live a long life and people know how to meditate for 1,000 years and etc. etc. So it's like what you say, Krishna kind of, okay, if we have that grain of something right away, by our desire, not by desire of Krishna, by our desire, we put ourselves in a different situation. And that situation where we first put ourselves is very conducive, is very spiritual, is very free of the mode of passion and ignorance. There is some passion and some ignorance, however, very, very little. And then there we can go back to Godhead or start a downward spiral. And the downward spiral is like, okay, maybe there was one grain of sand. And then because we have somehow enjoy in that situation away from Krishna, we put 2 grains of sand. And then those 2 grains of sand create a different situation that create 3 grains of sand. And little by little, then we degrade ourselves down to the place of Kali Yoga, Roches, or something like that. And it's not, like it's like, yeah, Krishna is that kind of person, say go. But let's say you say, let's go to your friend and come back when you want, but your friend found other friends somewhere and find something else, and little by little get lost, really doing things that's not good for her or for him. Then naturally you will try to find a way, how can I create things that she will understand or he will understand? That's not the right direction. And that's the situation Krishna, is put in. How does that sound to you?
Well, 2 things. One thing that is satisfying from what you're saying is I always in my mind listening to it thought, okay, I wanted to leave. So I went down into full material world that was just, so difficult. But I never heard anyone say that, no, you could leave and then go to one of the very high, planets that, the suffering isn't the same and whatever, however you put it, I get it. And that is satisfying. That is
Yeah.
I just want to quickly comment. There's a
does
purport.
feel better and more right.
I just want to quickly comment. There's a purport in the 9th canto Bhagavatam where Prabhupada says, when the living entity comes to to kind of be the controller, the living entity starts as a Brahma. So that's even above the heavenly planets. The living entity starts the material sojourn in the 8,400,000 species as a Brahma, a servant of Krishna in the service of controlling the universe. So just to support that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then from that of being Brahma, he can go back to Godhead or degrade himself down. Yeah. So that was satisfying, I hear, Kim, for you to understand. Like, it's not like I want to, we have a big desire to enjoy different from Krishna, which seems not to make sense. No, we have maybe a grain of desire or a subtle way in our minds, you know, in our, I don't know why the soul's mind, but something happened that there is something, a seed of something within ourselves to want to enjoy separating from Krishna. And then, yeah, like that purpose, like we become Brahma, or we come to a situation where we are still pious, still spiritual, still where there is no much of the mode affecting us. And then that's where we have free will. Yeah.
Yes, that helps. I need to meditate on it a bit, but it does help. Thank you.
And then your second question, it helps too.
Well, I mean, that kind of is the same question. Like, that's the part that probably still bothers me, but it helps what you guys have just said. But I still find it hard to understand why Krishna wouldn't create a place that is separate if that's what you wanted, which again, I say seems so hard for me to believe, but going back to the grain. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
I still find it hard to believe that there isn't a place where you could have that and yet it wouldn't have any tinge of material, you know, because it does. Those other, even though they're so high, they are still tinged. And then that's where the soul gets lost, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it does help. Believe me, it does help what you're saying, but there is still that little bit, yeah, that's still
A
fine.
little bit of doubt. Yeah, so
Yeah.
a little bit of that. And there is that place, you know, being a Brahma is almost like the spiritual world, not quite. It is a material world. And Lord Brahma have, for example, he has the opportunity to see the suffering of those who choose to be degrading themselves even more. You know, it's like, you know, we are not in prison, and we can see like, oh, some people, they choose to degrade themselves even more, and they are in a more stringent prison, for example. And so that place where the soul, when it have like that little grain of wanting to enjoy separately, Krishna does create a place where there is really high level of free will and high level of goodness and spiritual services. And then, yeah, each living entity with a free will, they can choose, yeah, I understand it and go back, or yeah, I want more, I want more material enjoyment, I want more, being lured by the glaring effulgence of Maya Devi, and then allowing oneself to be lured by it. And that's what we do every day. You know, every day we have the choice to stay with Krishna. Like, you know, right now we are all speaking of Krishna, we are all focused on spiritual life. We may not feel the onslaught of the material energy, whatever misery is happening in our life, we may not feel it right now. We feel like whatever is happening in our life is perfect. Maybe we are really experiencing some level of transcendence. So we could choose like, why will I choose something else for the rest of my day? Let me choose that for the rest of my day, which is where I am at. But somehow something will glare at us, some internet something, or you know, we will eat more than we need and our consciousness will become dull, or something that will create that we will fall way lower than where we are at now. So it's not different in a sense. We always made those kind of choices. Ramachandra, and after Fayanen. We'll just take a few more minutes because it's getting late.
Thanks. Yeah, Haladini's question got stuck in my mind, and I'm glad I let Kim to ask the question before me, because I think I feel more the thread of my personal question around Malini's question. Like I can answer somewhat to the degree that like why someone is punished later, right? There are three types of punishments in terms of how it's developed, the karma, right? Like the seed, the fruit, and then the taste of the fruit. But what I guess still disturbs me, or whatever that is why there is forgetfulness. Like in Kim's question, I think like this notion of like, okay, like we've been Lord Brahma, or we've been in the heavenly planets, but we are right now here where we suffer like anything, and then who knows where we're going to be later, and why Krishna puts us in forgetfulness of our suffering. It seems like counterproductive to our learning process, which I think that's what Haladini too was asking. It's still a question for me.
Like you're bringing all the question together, and then like, how come we don't remember? How come I don't remember that I ate laddu last night, and that's why I feel so foggy today?
Yeah, or how wonderful was that laddu, or
Yeah. So, I believe that maybe we want to forget somehow, because if I look at my life in this lifetime, I want to forget what I did that created consequences for me in this lifetime. I want to forget those things. I want to forget, because otherwise I go into, self-blame. I'm sensing that it's probably our desire to want to forget that Krishna fulfilled.
Yeah, that forgetfulness keeps us in material life, which is what I want. So the prison analogy. So I want to keep breaking into people's house and stealing. I want to keep killing people who I don't like. I want to keep doing these criminal activities, and I'm forgetting how much I suffered when the guards were beating me in prison. If I really remembered how much I suffered when the guards were beating me in prison, then I wouldn't steal, because I know it's going to lead to that again. But I have this desire to keep breaking into people's houses and stealing. And then I'm forgetting it was so miserable in prison with the slop and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as like the learning process in the human form of life, bringing in Len's question in that discussion, in the human form of life, if we have the capacity to be thoughtful, and if we're sincerely thoughtful, we understand what we did that caused the suffering. If we're really thoughtful, I understand what I did. At least I have the impression in the soul. If I really use the human capacity for sincere thoughtfulness, then it's not like, oh, well, how will I learn the lesson? No, if I'm thoughtful, I understand.
Yeah. Yes, it's really about responsibility, because even in a prison, like you said, when I went to do that program, yeah, most of them, they will say it's unfair that they were in prison. And they didn't accept responsibility. And of course, if they get out of prison, they will want to do exactly the same thing, and they will forget how miserable it was to be in a prison and be picked on by the guards. And again, like Anandini also share, like every day we do that. Every day in our life, we want to forget. We want to forget how we suffered. We want to forget our decision making. We want to forget the consequences of our choice. And then, yeah, we go into victim place, blaming ourselves, blaming others, shame, guilt, all that, which are not conducive for spiritual life, because that's exactly how we go into unconsciousness and ignorance. Yeah. Fayanen?
Hi, Hare Krishna. Quick question. is desire used interchangeably with lust? Like I know lust can be used specifically for sex desire, but I'm just thinking like in Bhagavad Gita, in lots of places they use lust quite a lot. So it was just occurring to me here, like, is it interchangeable with desire? Or is it?
Desire, yeah. I thank you for your question, and so much part of chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. Lust only, Arjuna. And my understanding is that, yeah, lust and material desire are synonymous. Lust and material desire are synonymous in a way that's used in the Bhagavad Gita. It is lust only, Arjuna, that, bring us to do things that we don't want to do. Like, so material desire, and there is spiritual desires and there are loves. So there is lust and love, and there is material desire and spiritual desire. So lust is material desire, and spiritual desires, they are based on the energy of love. That's my quick response to your quick answer. What your quick question?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I have a
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol.